Today we are taking you on a little journey we had last week of meeting Victoria Schwab. We went to see her in conversation with Garth Nix at Chronically, Sydney bookstore, and it was heaps of fun. We got 4 books signed. Yeah.
And we had a nice tiny little chat with her.
Yes, there was actually so many people.
Yeah.
Which we've been to see Patrick Ness before for a book signing, and there weren't as many people, so I was like very surprised by the amount that were there. But yeah, we took some footage. I'm in none of it. You'll see Billy in it more than me, but yes, we thought we'd take you along, so hope you guys enjoy.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for coming to Chronically. My name's Phoebe. So tonight we are very pleased to have with us a very special guest all the way from the US of A. She is a #1 New York Times USA and Indeed best-selling author of more than a dozen books, including Bookish, the Shades of Magic series, and This Savage Song. Her work has received critical acclaim, being featured in the New York Times, been translated into more than a dozen languages, been optioned for TV and film, and The Independent calls her the natural successor to Diana Wynne Jones and touts her the enviable, almost David-esque ability to switch between styles, genres, and tones. Tonight, she is in conversation with fantasy author extraordinaire and well-loved Kino favourite Garth Nix. Ladies and gentlemen, let's make a big welcome, Victoria V. Schwab.
What a nice crowd they are.
I know. Thank you all for coming.
And I actually had that exact same introduction here, so we can pass over that.
Process. Well, the question is short. So I'll just do the simplest answer of this, and I'd actually be really curious to hear your take on this too, because I want to know from other authors, because mine's a bit psychotic. I know the ending. I write the ending before I ever write the rest of the book. The reason I know the ending is twofold, because it takes a desert and it turns it into a field. I need to be able to see the end. I need to be able to see that this is not an infinite journey through the wastelands. I need to have an idea that I can get there. So it keeps me from quitting. And for everything I do is a trick to not quit first drafts, because I hate first drafts because they're imperfect and ugly and I want them to be perfect and pretty. And so it keeps me from quitting and it gives me something to look toward. But from a character design standpoint, I know who every single one of my characters is going to be at the very end. And then I rewind them to figure out where they're going to be in their emotional journey when we first meet them. So Delilah Bard's a perfect example. I knew exactly who she was at the end of Conjuring Flight in terms of development. So I could then undo part of that wholeness and figure out at what conflict point in her own identity she was going to be at when we met her. The rest of the writing process is horrific in that I outline rigidly and then I write completely out of order. So I literally cherry pick my scenes, but when I say I write out of order, I write the individual sentences in a scene out of order. So it's I write line 1, line 36, line 7, line 18, and then what happens is the best way I've been able to think of this is frost. You know how when frost spreads, it's you get numerous specks of it and then they all grow until they grow together? That's how my scenes work. So my sentences then grow into paragraphs around each other and they start fitting together. And that's because when I have an outline for a scene, it's a paragraph of what needs to happen in that scene. And so I'll write a sentence and then maybe I'll have the dialogue and the dialogue will start growing and I'll write the beat that the scene ends on. And it's just, it horrifies all of my writer friends. You are looking at me with vague horror right now. Wait, what's yours?
I think it's actually just fascination, not vague horror. Everyone's different. It's interesting. Well, I know the feeling of the end without knowing how to get there. So, and it's similar but not the same. But I certainly don't write sentences out of order. No, it's whatever people do. I mean, apocryphally, there was someone who wrote their books entirely backwards. I don't know who that was. P.G. Woodhouse used to write a chapter outline, and then he would choose which ones he thought were the most difficult, and then he would write them first. So he'd do like chapter 23 first, because he thought from his one sentence description of it, it would be the hardest. You know, so everyone's different. It's very interesting to hear how you do it.
Well, I don't think I have the discipline to write the hardest ones first. What happens is, like, I'm in different headspaces on different days, and some days I really want to write a murder, and some days I really want to write a sex scene, and some days I am like in a good place. Some days I'm very introspective, and so I'm in a good place to write an introspective scene. And some days I feel really strong, and I know that I can write one of the hardest scenes in the book. So in Addie LaRue, one of the hardest scenes in the book involves not a suicide, but a person getting to the point where they are ready to commit suicide. I knew, 5 years in the making, that was going to be one of the hardest scenes in this book. And so I had to wait until I had the kind of day where I was both introspective enough to write this and stable enough to write it. And so, like, having the outline means that I know I can be ready for those days. And then they have to, then it all gets smoothed out, and then I delete half of it and start again, so. That's normal, yeah.
Another question?
I write my stories backwards. I know the endings before I start the beginning, so I knew where my character was going to get to. And I really like taking your expectations of a character and changing them. So Holland moves from villain to antagonist to protagonist, and that's the thing that I like doing. Eli does the same thing in Vicious. I love writing Eli. I know that he's not everyone's favorite character, but I relished writing Eli. I relished writing Marcella Riggins from Vengeful more than I've ever relished anyone ever, because essentially what she's doing is taking all of the microaggressions turned towards women and turned towards minorities and turned towards people who are automatically not centered, and she acts on it. Like, we've all wanted to be someone who could turn someone else to ash for not letting us finish our sentences, and Marcella does, right? I like most of my characters. I wouldn't write them if I didn't get something out of writing them. There's no characters in my books I don't enjoy writing. They all serve different functions, but I have characters who are hard to write. So like Kate Harker from The Savage Song is very emotionally boxed off, as I needed her to be. She's exactly like I was at 17. Like, I wrote myself at 17, and that made her very hard to write. She's probably, to this day, the hardest character I've ever had to write, because that got a little too close for me. It's one thing to graze my characters, but it's another thing to be just bullseye dead center on my own neurotic problems. Yeah.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi.
Fun question time.
Yes.
If your characters were at a party, who's hosting, who's dancing enthusiastically but horribly, who's in the corner eating all the snacks, and who's just sitting around reading?
Oh, God. Okay, wait, you might have to remind me of one or two of these pieces. Hosting the party is obviously Ryan Maresh from Shades of Magic. That prince would host anything. But then I'm just going to do this within Shades of Magic world, right? Because I have 15 books, it's too hard. So Alucard is dancing shamelessly, in the center of the floor, and doesn't care if anyone is with him. What were the last two?
Eating all the snacks, reading in the corner.
Lila Bard is eating all the snacks, and Kel Maresh is or Holland and Kel, weirdly at opposite ends, opposite corners, are both. No, this is gets to a point of, there's this very weird AU online called Coffee Shop Shades of Magic, where they just all live in, it's just all the Shades of Magic characters having a very nice time in a coffee shop. And I think this gets to the fact that I know there's a lot of smutty fan fiction out there, but the vast majority of the fan fiction for Shades of Magic is just my characters being okay. There's literally an AO3 tag that's Holland falls out a window, but it's okay, he's fine. And I feel like this is the most indicative thing about this fandom, is they just want me to stop torturing everybody. Sidebar, the other fandom, or the other AO3 tag that I didn't really realize existed, is something called Soulbound Kink. And this is apparently like an entire aspect of fan fiction wherein like when one person feels something, the other one feels something, which I didn't realize when I tied Kel and Rye together physically. And so there's like an entire trail you can go down that's like Alucard and Rye, and then like Kel being very pissed off all the time. So yeah, but check out like the like coffee shop AU for Shades of Magic, because it's literally just them all like sitting in coffee shops. The simple answer is that I'm working on a lot of things all the time because that's how I cope with anxiety. So like I wrote an essay in a mental health anthology, and the essay is called Black Hole. And like essentially what happens is that for me, my head is always cluttered, and like the morbidity complex, the other thing, like I fixate on things. And if I don't have an energy outlet, if I'm not creating, if I'm not exorcising that energy, it gets tangled up inside my head, and I start fixating, and I start basically spiraling, and I'll like obsess over the same sentences or the same thoughts or like one thing that I said to somebody, and I'll obsess for hours. Like I won't be able to sleep, I won't be able to do anything. It's absolutely paralyzing. And so for me, creative work is the way that I channel what would otherwise be a very, very bad energy into a positive outlet. It's the way I take all the tangled string and make it into something like a sweater, you know? Like it would be there anyway. Like I am constantly working on things because there is no darker point in my life than when I am transitioning from one project to another. So when I'm not sunk all the way into one project, when I'm trying to like extricate to move on to another project, that terrible emptiness that has to come for you to get out of one and into the next, that is the only point in my life when I feel truly hopeless and lost. So like for me, it's sometimes counterintuitive, but the overwork is the thing that keeps me sane. Is that good? Yeah.
Yeah, so that was just a bit of footage that I took. It was only of the questions from the audience. I didn't get any of...
yeah, we got the intro and the questions from the audience.
Actually, talking with Garth Nix, talked a lot about mental health, about death, about anxiety, a very interesting writing process that she has, really haphazard and psychotic, as she says. So it was really, really interesting.
Yeah, it was a great event, and while we were kind of doing little bits of filming, we thought, oh no, this isn't enough to piece together, but it ended up being
a fair amount of
pretty
footage.
good. Yeah, we didn't want to take too much because we wanted to kind of be at the event and get the best out of it we could without worrying about not listening and getting the best footage. But yes, we hope you enjoyed it.
We've got the 4 books here that we got signed.
So we have
The Savage Song, and Our Dark Duet, which is a duology, which I have not read yet.
Which is now fancily signed. Yay! And we got A Darker Shade of Magic signed and just personalized with our names as well. And it was quite funny because she made a joke with us about, oh, you must love each other very much to have the same book signed.
She said, we must have a great it's a sign of a good relationship.
When you get books signed together.
So that was
quite funny. And the last one we got signed was
Vicious,
which is a really nice hardback. So yes, it was heaps of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed the footage.
Yeah. Let us know, and like, comment and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye.